Ajmal, welcome to the Sound of Social podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you, firstly, for taking so much time out to join me. And anybody watching this or listening to this that hasn't come across you, which I very doubt because I see you everywhere across the social spaces, especially TikTok. Um, this is going to be a totally. I know we've got some questions prepared, but I'm going to take this into different directions, whether that's into the business sector, food and drink, and really tap into your expertise and just get your opinion on a lot of things. But for anybody watching that might not be aware of your story, if you could just briefly explain your background, please.
Hi, delighted to be here. So my name is Ajmal Mushtaq. I worked in a family business for 5 years when I left school. Then I studied law at university, went off to London, worked in London for 10 years for Accenture, which is the largest consultancy in the world. Wonderful lifestyle, jet set lifestyle, worked in some really difficult projects. And then in 2009, I finally made the jump to becoming self-employed. I started my own business. I had this burning desire to be my own boss. So I started a small takeaway. And the reason I started that is I was passionate about food. And then within 4 years, I grew that to being the biggest takeaway operation in Britain. And now I'm the chief executive of Boss Pizza, which is a new pizza brand going head to head with Domino's. We're going to be rolling branches out across the UK. So that's my business experience, like 25 plus years of business experience. And also I've been doing business speaking all over the country for the past 15 years. And the only difference between Gary Vee and me, he had a video camera recording everything, and I would just turn up, do my talk, and go back and
Yeah,
not have any and it wasn't documented.
I think he's the king of documentation. And if anybody,
Yeah,
I would doubt anybody listening to has not heard of him. It's
yeah,
crazy. I just saw the size of his team once that puts
right.
it together, and his team consists of 60 people that
Wow.
just work on him full time. So forget his agency. And his content is split into three languages. So they have English, Spanish, and Arabic. And he has a full time team just constantly documenting. It's crazy. I was speaking to the guy that built his search engine. So he's got a search engine where you can type in, for example, business advice or NFTs or whatever. And it brings up like a Google search of everything that archived to the exact minute. And he was just saying it took him 4 years putting that together. So
Wow.
he's the king of documentation. One of the reasons, Ajmal, I wanted to have you on was to really discuss social media and the impact that's had on the food and drink business, whether that's takeaways, restaurants, or in supermarkets, and what impact social media has had on it from your point of view, especially the last 2 years where you've had lockdown, you've had a lot of dark kitchens appear, you've had a lot of delivery services like Uber, Boom. So what's your kind of thoughts on that?
So I think technology and even social media has totally changed the game from a consumer point of view. From a consumer point of view, consumers now have much more choice at their fingertips. They can sit at home on the app and they can get almost any type of food or cuisine delivered to them. From the partners' point of view, the takeaway owners, the food businesses, from their point of view, is giving them real access to the online world, to e-commerce. So if you're a husband and wife team not very clued up on technology, you partner with Just Eat, Uber, Deliveroo, or any one of the other partners, and you could actually have full online capability for your business. So I think it's had a massive, massive impact on the whole sector. In terms of social media has been phenomenal because you can actually get your brand out there to like millions of people. Yes, food business is geographic, but you're still getting out to a massive number of people. And I'll give you my example. I've only been posting on TikTok for the last few weeks and I've got 1.6 million views. That is more than all of my other social media platforms put together over the last decade.
So do you think, so let's just look at the tech sector, for example, if you split the question into two. So if we look at, let's just say Uber and Deliveroo and Just Eat, do you think that's a positive for the food and drink, for the takeaway market? or do you see it more as a negative where they are totally reliant on there now, and they are at the mercy of the platform when it comes to margins and whatever pricing has been set?
Well, I think it's great for the sector as a whole. Prior to Just Eat coming in, the takeaway business was regarded as not very reputable. It's just Chinese people, Asian people, Italian people doing fish and chip shops. So what these big organisations have come in and they've cast a light on the magnitude and the size of the sector. It's a multi-billion pound sector, and it can no longer be ignored. So I think what they've done is they've really shone a light on the true potential of this sector. Every single person has to eat. So I think it's been very positive. Now, there's also a downside, and the downside is they're charging a lot of fees. 30% commission, for example, for if they use their own drivers. Now, I was actually looking on a Deliveroo restaurant partner, and the cost of one can is £1.50. Cans cost about 50, 60, 70 pence. So from a consumer point of view, these online aggregators have come on, and that has also driven up the prices, because what the restaurant partners are doing, they're increasing the prices to cover the commission.
And do you think, let's say somebody like yourself who's got big plans for Boss Pizza, do you think brands should also look at developing their own tech? Whether there's, or like Domino's isn't on any of these platforms. They've invested so much in their own tech. Do you think that's somebody you should be looking to do that also?
100%. Every business, every food business in the UK should be looking to develop their own app. And the good news is there are so many companies out there that offer you the app capability for a fixed monthly fee of, say, £80. So you could potentially save your business thousands of pounds in commission charges. Yep.
And from the food sector point of view, so there's so much has changed in I look at the last 2-3 years, whether that is these tech businesses coming into food, whether that is the consumer habits changing because of lockdown. People are more used to deliveries. Where do you see the next big opportunity in that sector? Is it dark kitchens? Is that where you see the scale? Is it more businesses like you're seeing able to negotiate better deals on rent, so you're able to grow faster? Where is the opportunity then?
So dark kitchens are the future, and we see a lot of dark kitchens in London, Birmingham, Manchester, not so much all across the country yet. But I think the big brands like KFC, Burger King, Nando's, they don't need to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds or millions of pounds on real estate when they could just rent a kitchen for £3,000 and get the business up and running and reach a new audience. So dark kitchens are definitely going to be the future of food delivery in the next few years.
And have you come across influencers that are setting up their own brands? So, for example, there's a really two big YouTubers like Mr. Beast and KSI. They've got their own food brands now. Called Mr. Beast has got his, I think it's called Mr. Beast Burgers, and KSI has got his, which is called Sides. And they use, like, let's say in Scotland they might use you, in Manchester they might use me. Is the menus the same? How do you see that kind of sector evolving?
Well, the influencer market is huge, but you've got to look at the culinary experience. Your influence and popularity can take you a long way, but ultimately the product has to be very, very good if you want repeat custom, especially in the food industry.
Yeah, that's so true, because we're based in Manchester City Centre, so we've been coming into the office we were only at home for like 2 months, and in that period, from being back into the office, the amount of food places that have popped up, but you're so true. The quality is where you'll go back to your regular or who knows you. A lot of these new places, the quality is very hit and miss, whether that's ingredients or they were in lockdown, they watched a few videos on how to make smash burgers and decided to set up a brand. The quality is always the hard part, and I do agree with that, where if you can't get the quality right, they'll maybe try you once and they won't come back.
Product, people underestimate this. Product is the single most important part of any business. Don't spend any money on your website, on your menus, and on staff or anything until you've got your product absolutely down to a T. And I've seen in London, there's a few dark kitchens. Because I'm in this space, I like to keep abreast of all the latest trends. There's one dark kitchen in London that I'm aware of. The tenants don't last for more than a year.
Wow.
And there's that, the turnaround is that high, and it goes back to you have to focus on your product.
Very true. And sorry, my lights have gone off. 1 second. And so within the UK takeaway market, a lot of it is I would say Chinese and Pakistani, Indian are big players in this space. Why haven't, especially the South Asian community, been able to create a really large brand that's been able to go international? Considering there's so many of us in this sector and we do it well.
That's a very good question, Bilal. The reason Indian food, Chinese food hasn't been able to expand nationally with national chains is very simple. The complexity of cooking is very, very difficult. Right. Now, I own two brands. I own Mushtaq, which is the biggest takeaway operation in Britain. That's an Indian brand. Mm-hmm. And then I own Boss Pizza, which is a pizza brand. In terms of difficulty, Mushtaq's, the Indian brand, is 10 out of 10 difficulty. And by comparison, pizza is 1 out of 10. So I think that's one of the reasons. Indian food just requires a whole different level of skill set. And the cooking of the food is much more complex as well. You can't mass produce Indian food, freeze it, and then ship it out to all the different branches and then reheat it, and it's going to be the same. It just doesn't work. Yes, it works with burgers and fries, but not for Indian food.
Do you think it's a mentality issue as well?
No, I think it's not mentality. It's purely technical. It's the technical difficulty of cooking Indian food in multiple sites across the country to make sure that the consistency is exactly the same.
And do you see
I want to do this.
Yeah, that was my question.
I want to do this. I could give you the same ingredients in Manchester, and I've got exactly the same ingredients, and we could cook food that's like a million miles apart. So getting Indian food is just very difficult.
Do you see that changing in the next, let's say, decade? Do you see that somebody developing a process, or is it just a skill and the type of, it's just too difficult to do? To create a KFC or a McDonald's?
Well, we've developed a concept that we could roll out potentially. But is the appetite there for Indian food? Yes, but it's getting weaker. If you go back 20 years, it was Indian food and Chinese food. They were the two main foods. What's happening now is the younger demographic, they've got sushi, they've got peri-peri, they've got fried chicken, they've got just much more choice. So our demographic at Mushtaq is a much more senior, it's a much older demographic. So I think the future is going to be much more difficult for Indian food based on the multi-cuisines that are available.
And as you're you're big on socials and you spend a lot of time there, and you're very familiar with this new hustle culture and all these young 20-year-olds giving advice on YouTube on how you can scale businesses overnight. What's your opinion on hustle culture and this type of hard to validate advice that exists out there?
Right. Let me clear my throat for this one. Sorry. I don't know what's... Right. You can edit this bit out, hopefully, right? Okay. Entrepreneurship is sexy, right? Everyone's talking about it and everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, but there's not very many people that actually realize exactly how difficult the journey is. Passive income, that's bullshit. Side hustles, that's bullshit. You simply cannot make great money using a passive income strategy. That does not happen. And the example I give, because I get asked this question quite a lot. I mean, look at the size of my muscles, right?
Yeah.
Imagine I want to be a bodybuilder like Arnold Schwarzenegger was like in the day, but I only want a passive gym strategy. I only want to spend maybe 1 or 2 days or a few hours in the gym. Am I going to get a great body just with that passive gym strategy? Absolutely not. If you want a great body like a bodybuilder has, you have to put in the effort. And it's exactly the same for business. You only get out what you put in. So I think there's a lot of people selling courses, selling misinformation, selling the dream. But there's very few entrepreneurs out there that are actually seeing it as it is. And I believe, I think I'm one of them. I put out a lot of content on TikTok, and a lot of the comments I get, the comments are, Ajmal, your stuff is very negative. And my response is, no, it's real. This is real
That's
business
right.
talk.
Yeah, that's my point, because a picture's been painted over the last 4, 5, maybe 6 years by people that created a fake image about entrepreneurship. And now when the real people like yourself, who are very successful and coming and talking about it and giving a real view, it's seen as a negative. And I did, Ty Lopez, who started this culture off, in my opinion, especially the course culture, he makes like $32 million of one of his courses. I got a bootleg version of his course. I wasn't willing to pay the $3,000 for it. So I got a bootleg. I just wanted to see what was in the course. It was basically broken down into stuff taken off YouTube, off Google. It was just not very, very good. And in his course, he was teaching how to scale an agency. Not once in his course did he discuss how to acquire a customer, what your strategy should be on outreach, how you should outreach. And he was selling this. And then what they would do is, once you've done one course, they would say, right, you need to get into the masterclass. And for that, you need to pay $10,000. And they just buy you into a system. And I'm sure you get these as much as I do when you're on YouTube and you get the Amazon guys trying to sell you Amazon's how to grow on Amazon. It's just crazy. Yeah. It's absolutely crazy. And people that actually do know what to do in business, when they are giving advice, it's seen as negative.
And that's okay. I don't mind that. The one thing I really worry about, Bilal, is I worry for the youth. If you're like we're fairly mature, we're battle hardened, we've been in the industry and business for a long time, but I'm worried about the 15, 16, 17, 18 to 20-year-olds. This is all they're seeing on YouTube and Facebook ads everywhere, is they're selling the dream. These guys are going to end up spending thousands and thousands of their own money, and they're going to get very little in return. And I feel a real shame for these guys. And I think more needs to be said. This needs to be discussed more openly. This whole hustle culture and selling courses, a lot of it is just bullshit. And people need to open their eyes to that.
It's that traditional get-rich-quick schemes that you used to get on VHSs, and people used to sell them to you back in the day. And it's just evolved into this online kind of way, because everything's so easy to do. You can create a course on Kajabi very easily and brand it as your own and run ads and then just acquire customers. And it's really, really... I see it in property as well. In property is very big, like how to buy property without any money. I'm like, what the fuck? What do you mean how to buy without any money? And how you can scale up to £1 million worth of portfolio in 6 months. I'm like, really? Like, does this? And then you see people in the thousands paying. There's a YouTuber called Mike Winnett. Ajmal, you need to check this guy out. He made
Demotivational. I know him. I know
yeah,
him.
he's been undercover into a lot of these places, and he really kind of exposes the what goes on. Now,
Yeah.
when it comes to entrepreneurship and having that knack, do you think that you're born with that, or can you be taught that?
I think you have to be. Sorry. Can you be born with it, or can it be taught? I think a lot of the traits are inherent. You've got to be dedicated. You've got to work hard. You've got to sacrifice. You've got to have a thick skin. And it's not for everyone. Running your own business is incredibly, incredibly difficult. And the amount of sacrifice that you have to make is off the charts. And for the first 6 years of my business, I hardly took a wage. I lived on below minimum wage. All the profits were reinvested back into the business. I didn't take a holiday for 6 months. Didn't take a holiday for 6 years. Didn't see my son for the first 6 years of his life. So these are the sacrifices that you've got to make. And running a business is incredibly difficult. And I'm not sure that that is something you can teach. I think you've either got the inherent traits or you've not.
It's emotionally very demanding as well. Just not physically,
Oh,
as and I think that's not talked about enough. Like you've just said, not being able to see your child for so long, and the emotional stresses of when you're starting a business of making payroll or hiring staff, getting them decisions wrong, cash flow. These things are just not taught anywhere until you're in the mix. Is when and that's like I said, that period in that first year or so of a business is, I feel, the most toughest, because that's when you know you've got it or not.
yeah.
Because when you're struggling, it's very, very difficult. But I guess on Instagram they don't teach you that. And what about,
Yeah.
so you're hugely successful, right? So what are the key factors in running a successful business? Is it the people
Number
management?
one, you've got to get your. Sorry, carry on, Bilal.
Is it the people? How important is the managing the people, having the right people around you? Like, I'm going to go into right specifics in this. Like, what's your key factors that you feel that
Right.
are the most important?
Teamwork, let's put that to the side just now, right? Because we'll come back to that. That's very important. The single most important part of running a business is you've got to have a great product, right? Focus all of your effort into creating the great product. Then what you do is make sure it's offered at a value point to the customer. You've got great customer service. So you've got product, you've got value, you've got service. And then what you do is you take all of that, you wrap it up in great marketing. And I spend like 8% of my total revenue on marketing. I spend 45% of my time on marketing the business. And we've got 30 different marketing channels. So fundamentally, I have created my businesses, and that's a formula that I use, and it's worked repeatedly. So that's the basic building blocks for business. Secondly, teamwork. People management is underestimated. It is so important. I spend 15% of my time religiously managing, motivating, enthusing my team, right? And
Was that 50? Did you say 50?
people underestimate. 15, 1-5.
1-5.
Yeah, 15% of my time is spent motivating, managing, and enthusing the team. And you need to say thank you. You need to make them feel appreciated. You need to take them on the journey with you. And a lot of businesses drop the ball in this because either the owners get busy or the managers get busy, or there's a disconnect in communication from the chief executive down to the ground. So people management, very, very important. And I had the good fortune of speaking to a very close contact of mine. This is when we were starting Boss Pizza, and this guy's run £1 billion company. He actually created it from nothing and floated it on the stock market for over £1 billion. And I said to him, right, let's start Boss Pizza. I want to start Boss Pizza. And his very first question to me was, right, who's on the team? And that just shows you someone who's run £1 billion company, the very first thing he thinks about is, right, who's on the team? So teamwork, very, very important.
And when you're in business, how do you go about attracting that talent then? You know, when you're not as attractive as your competitor, how do you go about attracting the talent?
Well, as a business owner, and there's many business owners and leaders out there who are amazing. And when you say to them, you've got to surround yourself with a team that's better than you, that's actually very difficult to do. But if you break it down like this, it's actually very easy. So when I was building Boss Pizza, so I brought on someone who's really technical, much more technical than me. I brought on someone who's much better at social media. I brought on someone who's much better at customer engagement. So as a leader, it's my responsibility to make sure I bring all of those skills to the table and make them work in a way that executes the overall vision. That's how you build a team that's better than you.
And what about delegation? How important is delegation then?
Delegation is actually a very hard thing to do for a small business owner. Because remember, it's like your baby. You wouldn't just nurture your child up to the age of 2 years old and then hand him over to someone else. You would never do that, would you? And it's the same in business. It's your baby. Your business is your baby. So it takes a few years of business growth for you to be able to put the systems in place where you can delegate. And I think I really struggled with delegation in the first 3-4 years. But since then, as the business has grown, delegation has become a lot simpler. But you cannot just delegate and leave it at that. You have to delegate with systems, processes, checks, status reports, reviews, monthly reviews, all of those systems in place, and then delegation becomes a lot easier.
And from a UK point of view, why do you think we've never been able to produce the really big companies like they do in America? Is that because of their way of thinking? Is it the way we look at how in the UK we look at failure as a big, cross next to your name, whereas in America, they don't really invest in you unless you've failed at least 4 times? Is it we don't have that culture here? Why do you think we've not been able to produce the really large?
Well, I think America is much more entrepreneurial than the UK, and I think the tax laws enable the US to be much more entrepreneurial. In the UK, if you're a business owner, you're choked to death by tax. Why would anyone in the right mind even think of running a business? So the population is larger in the US. The tax system favours entrepreneurship. And I think that has probably led to a culture or a generation or generations of people starting up their businesses and then progressing them. And we're seeing more and more of that in the UK, but we're still a good sort of 10 years behind the US.
I was watching Shark Tank, and anyone listening or watching Shark Tank's The Dragon's Den in America. And they won't invest unless you've got a couple of failures. And then I was watching Dragon's Den, where if you've made a loss in any of your years, it's like, oh my God, we can't invest in you. And I was talking to one of my colleagues on how Uber loses till this day so much money because of they expand at such a rate. And I was like, this company, if it was a UK company, they would have wrapped it up by now because of the losses are so heavy. And to me, it was just because of the way they think out there. And yes, you're right also regarding the tax. Everything around it just favours them a lot more, I suppose. So we're in 2022. What businesses do you or where are the opportunities in your opinion?
Oh, that's easy. Boss Pizza franchising all over the UK. If anyone's interested,
give them a shout.
Clearly that is one. But I think...
Sorry, I'll refine that a bit more. Maybe I left it too loose there, right? As in, which sectors do you see growing declining? Do you see retail coming down? Do you see online booming? Is it more food and drink? Is it more health businesses? Just what you've seen and what your view on that is really going forward.
I think anything in the e-commerce space is much more attractive. If I had to start all over again, I would never be in the food business. And the reason for that is I am limited by geography, like 3, 4, 5 mile radius, that's it. And I can only serve food like at dinner time. If I had to start again, I would start definitely an e-commerce company where you're open to the world and you're open 24/7. And whether you're doing 2 hours of marketing or 20 hours of marketing, your potential audience is much wider. So I think you want to start a business that's open to the world. You've got low overheads. You don't need a retail property, so therefore you don't need to pay the business rates. So I think there's so many opportunities in the e-commerce space. That's where I would focus.
And what are the plans for Boss Pizza now then? So when are we going to see it in Manchester? When are we going to see it everywhere?
So Boss Pizza started a couple of years ago, and we have spent the last 2 years almost building a solid foundation. And this is the right way around. We're not just expanding rapidly, we're expanding slowly, but we're building such a strong foundation. We're going to launch the rocket ship, but in order to do that, you need to have a solid foundation. And all of my effort in the last 2 years has gone into building that solid foundation. So when we do press the go button, and we're just about to do that, you'll see branches springing up all over the UK very, very quickly.
Will that be a franchise model?
Franchise? Well, it's a franchise and self-owned model, a combination of the two.
And what do you think of the franchise model overall, especially when it comes to your sector? Is it implemented well? Can it be improved? What differences will be with your franchise compared to the others?
The franchise model as a whole is very good. It allows you to expand your brand nationally without injecting too much capital. The burden of responsibility is actually on the owners of the store, the franchise partners. They take care of a lot of the day-to-day headache, which allows the main company to expand as quickly as possible. So I think from an expansion point of view, from a cash position point of view, it's very good. The only thing is you do lose a certain amount of control, and that's where it's very, very important to have the systems, the processes, the training, the checks in place to make sure that the franchise partners do not deviate from your operating model.
And Ajmal, if anybody wants to follow you, get in touch with you, find out about what you're up to, how do they do that?
All of my effort, as you know, recently is going on TikTok. So at Ajmal Mushtaq, there's my name down at the bottom. At Ajmal Mushtaq, I'm on TikTok. I post 3 business videos a day. I'm not selling you anything. And I am just sharing my experiences over the years. And I'm really enjoying it. And then I've also got a website, ajmalmushtaq.com, or hit me up on social media like Instagram or Facebook.
Ajmal, it's been an absolute pleasure to tap into your expertise, to tap into your knowledge. I'm sure we'll do this again very soon. And if I ever do come to Scotland, I will give you a shout and come to Boss Pizza and give it a try.
Nice one.
Thank you, Ajmal.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being on here. Thank you.
Thank you.